Our scripture lesson today comes from Paul's early letter to the church in Ephesus, which is modern-day Turkey. Let's share in God's good word together. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time, because the days are evil. So do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Amen. Please be seated. When I was 16, on my 16th birthday, my mom gave me her extra key to her blue 1962 Chevy 2 that she bought brand new when she graduated from the University of Alabama with her master's degree in family relations and child development, so she knew how to raise kids. Now, that car had no air conditioning, a metal steering wheel which would burn your hands. I had to drive with driving gloves in the summer. No power steering, no power brakes, no seat belts. Now, you combine all that with the fact that my dad was the pastor of every small town we ever lived in, that the whole town watched you, and my parents thought it was a good idea to have a curfew for their 16, 17, 18-year-old son. Now, this is before cell phones, before Life 360, and my dad being a pastor, they always lived in the parsonage, which was the house that the church owned, and Big Carol, as my friends would call my mom, because she had a very big personality. She would always wait up and make sure that you were home for curfew. The problem with curfew is that if I was at my friend Paul Davis's house playing Atari, by the way, young people, if you want to play video games, you used to actually have to go to your friend's house, right? There was no online, right? If I wanted to watch a movie over at my friend Rob's house, again, you had to go to their house and get your VHS tape from the local movie store. And here's the thing, I would have to be home at a certain time, but the movie was going to get over 10 minutes after that time. Or the game, we almost had beaten the game, but it wasn't quite. And so I would find myself playing this mental game. I can get home in just 5 more minutes, or 5 more minutes. What I didn't take into account is that I was never at the same location, right? 5 more minutes. And if it's amazing I'm alive. Driving that tank of a car with no power steering, no brakes, going so fast to get home on time. I'm pretty sure that on a few of my dates, the girls just rolled out of the car because I never slowed down. It's like, you get home, Big Carol's waiting. So here's the thing. We all have this thing, don't we, where it's like just 5 more minutes. Or maybe for you, it's 1 more drink or 1 more look or 1 more scroll or 1 more business trip. And so as a pastor now for more than 30 years, I understand my folks and their frustration with late Saturday nights when they had to be ready for Sunday morning. But the only thing I cared about was trying to figure out how close to curfew as humanly possible I could get without losing my license, right? And the thing is not to be too hard on me. I was like most, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. This is me and my Granny Dot at First Methodist. There's no I there, apparently. So, because there's no I in church, people. But anyway, that's a whole other sermon. But you get it. We all can tend to live on the edge of not so much what's right and wrong, but what can I get by with and still do what I want to do, right? We are in a sermon series called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. We're in week 3, and so in week 1, here's the setup, and that is good questions lead to better decisions, right? Say that with me. Good questions lead to better decisions. Ask more questions. And better decisions lead to fewer regrets. That's the idea of the sermon series. So here's the framework. Basically, ask yourself, ask others, ask your Granny Dot, if you have one of those, right? And then answer honestly. Answer honestly, this is what's going on with me. When you make a purchase, when you're about to make a decision, and they don't, here's the thing. I would say when you're about to make a big decision, friends, all decisions get big over time, right? It's the little decisions that become big. And if you ask and you answer honestly, then act accordingly, right? Start to live into the person you want to become, not the person you can get by with. So the first week really is the integrity question, and that is, am I being honest with myself? Say that with me. Am I being honest with myself? And sometimes, if you're not honest with yourself, you have to add really, right? Am I being honest with myself? Really, right? And because as soon as you start selling yourself anything, hit pause. Because what I found is, at least in my life, probably true in yours as well, if it's sort of a really, really good idea, you're not having to sell yourself on it. You just kind of go on. But if it's sketchy or somewhat questionable or you're not sure about it, you're like, oh, it'll be okay. The wisdom of the Bible says in Proverbs 27, that, read it with me, the clever see danger and hide, but the simple go on and suffer for it. Another translation says it gets clobbered, right? Just going on. You might just know that if you say, it's going to be okay, it's all good, you just know that it's probably not. It's probably not. And here's why. Because you can't lead yourself if you're lying to yourself. This is a sermon series that was preached years and years ago by Andy Stanley. And I thought, man, this is so good. This could really help our folks, particularly as we go back to school. And so I've been saving it for a couple of years for this time as we go back into a new year together. In Edmond, the new year doesn't start January 1st. New Year starts now, right? This is our new year together. And so here's what I found. And that is that we make better decisions together. Say that with me. We make better decisions together. So if you find yourself about to make a decision completely alone, because you want to do it your way and not get any input from anybody else, hit pause. Because that's probably not going to go in the right direction. Again, the wisdom literature and Proverbs would say this: without good direction, people lose their way. The more wise counsel you follow, right? The more counselors you have around you, the better your chances. Isn't that true? Yeah, just have good counsel around you. So last week then we got to the conscience question, which is there attention that deserves my attention? Will you say that with me? Is there attention that deserves my attention? In my family system, my mom would say, well, I had a check in my spirit. I just couldn't quite get right with that, so I had to pause for a moment. So if something bothers you, friends, let it bother you. We live in the age of distraction. Pastor Brandon did a great 6-week series on the problems with technology, and distraction is a large part of that. And here's why. Much of the culture is going to say, if it bothers you, so what? Just move on. No. If something bothers you, let it bother you. Why? Because it might be a gift of God protecting you. You may not be able to put your finger on it. You may not be able to articulate it. But what I've found in my life and in yours over 3 decades of doing this is that when there's something off and you can't explain it, it becomes true later. You see it. Basically, what begins as an uneasy feeling is often supported later with reason, and sometimes multiple reasons. You're like, oh, I see that now. Because God is always working for your good. Say that with me. God is always working for your good, always. So pay attention to the tension because it's good for you. It's good for you. It's meant for your good. And, by the way, you know this if you've ever made a big purchase. When you pause, you stand a better chance of making a good decision. If you're my age, you've probably made a decision or two when you were pushed, and then you look back on it and go, oh, yeah, I wish I hadn't have done that. Because you didn't take time for wise counsel. Maybe you didn't get a second opinion. Maybe you didn't get a second quote. Maybe you just went with your first instinct. So this week, we come to what I think is a really, really great question for all people, all times, all places, and it's the maturity question. So before I give it to you, let me start with the wrong question. Most people ask the wrong question, which is, what can I get by with without getting in trouble? Say that with me. What can I get by with without getting in trouble? Now, don't everybody look at the youth group. Because that's not just true for them, right? It's true for all of us. It's true for all of us, right? So back to my little Chevy. So while it may be a moment since you've had a curfew and it's forced your hand into bad driving habits, my submission is that if you all are being honest with your pastor, you know that you're not great drivers either. Not really. As a matter of fact, my hunch is that if you have a driver's license, you have already broken the law, probably on your way here, right? And here's the thing. How many of you all drive 30 in a 30? Yeah, some of you do. Some of you, and you're prideful about it. That's a problem. Right? But for the rest of us, we drive 33, right? 34. And you're like, oh, yeah, but I mean, this is 30. Like, it's so slow. Well, what are you driving at 55? I hear people like, 65. Well, what? I mean, it's 75, and that's fast. That's way faster than, you could drive in the 70s. But do you drive 75? No, right? Here's what I've found. You don't have to agree with me, but this is my experience. We choose the speed we're convinced allows us to break the law while avoiding an encounter with the law. Say it with me. We choose the speed we're convinced allows us to break the law while avoiding an encounter with the law. Isn't that true? Yeah, whether it's curfew, whether it's a diet, whether it's driving or spending, our human nature is to live as close to the line as possible. You say, well, what line is that? Well, it's the line between legal and what? Illegal. It's the line between responsible and irresponsible, and it's the line between ethical and unethical, right? It is human nature to try to get by with stuff. Just is, for every person. And you might say, well, that's why we need Jesus. That's why we need the Spirit. That's why we need a community to go, that is dumb. That's a bad idea, right? And so here's the problematic thinking. And we all have it. This is not unique to any person. I'm not beating on people. I'm just kind of raising awareness, like, look, this is where we live, right? And we will say things like, if it's not wrong, it's all right. You know how dumb that is. Now, I'm not trying to upset anyone here, but as a former lifeguard, this is very upsetting to me. It's not wrong, right? It's not wrong. That's wrong. But what I'm going to show you is not necessarily wrong. We don't have context for this photo, but it makes me super anxious. Doesn't it you? And it should. Like, we should not be okay with that. Now, maybe the mom or dad's off frame. Maybe the kid can swim. That'd be great. But here's the thing. Most people in this room have sort of a reaction to this because we're like, no. Is it illegal? No. Is it flat out wrong? No. Actually, no, we don't know what's going on. Is it wise? No. But here's what I find. We can kind of agree on this and be like, yeah, that's dumb. But what other areas of your life are you flirting with that you're just not in the pool yet? And why do we have such a problem saying to each other, like, that's just not wise, friend? And you see where that's headed. Because here's the thing that Christians get wrong all the time. What is a sin and problematic for you may not be for someone else. And what may not be for someone else is absolutely for you. You put two kids on the side of a pool, one needs a life jacket, one doesn't. Why? Because one knows how to swim. Right? Here's the thing. The way Christianity gets it wrong is to say this thing is bad for everybody. Not necessarily. And Paul addresses this fully in Ephesians and in Romans, trying to teach the early church. So here's other problematic thinking. If it's not illegal, it's what? It's okay. No. Now, let me back up here. I know, with no judgment, we have people in our church that use marijuana medicinally. It's very helpful to them, right? Maybe they have RA, they have other things, and it actually helps them, right? But, in Oklahoma, you have to have a medical use card. Now, all of a sudden, who can get a medical use card? Anybody, right? And so now what do you do? And you say, well, so is it legal, illegal? It's not wise for most of us that don't have a medical reason to use it, particularly if you put it in your bag because you're on a trip, because you're used to using it for this or that, and you drive through Texas, and now you're in jail. You do understand this, right? That something that can be 100% legal in New Mexico can be questionable in Oklahoma and get you arrested in Kansas and Texas. That's how bizarre this can be. And so just because it's legal doesn't make it wise. Does it make sense? Just because it's legal doesn't make it wise. Doesn't make it moral or immoral necessarily. But what may be not a problem for you may be a big problem for the person sitting next to you. And here's the problematic thinking. If it's not over the line, it's fine. No. Why? Because as everybody who's ever been to a 12-step group knows, the line moves, doesn't it? The line moves. If you've ever had a struggle in your life with any kind of addictive behavior, you know that you share what every addict calls their bottom line. Here's my bottom line. Here's my red line that I won't cross. And if you go to meetings long enough, you'll find that line has been crossed. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. That's why we will say, this is a line that I will not cross until, of course, we do, which is why you need a sponsor. Right? That's what sponsors are for. Now, often the only hope for folks that are struggling is someone else in their life that says, I thought that was your bottom line you leapt over last week. And they're like, yeah, I moved it. Well, it's really hard to stay clean and sober if your line keeps moving. Because we, as people, basically ask, how close can I get to bad without being bad? Friends, that's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. The way Andy Stanley puts it, I love the way he puts it. He says, don't dangle your toes off the edge of illegal, immoral, unsafe, or unhealthy. Right? I'm making my own self nervous here. Right? Right? So if you are a good provider for your family, asking the question, how long can I neglect my family, my finances, or my health without feeling the effects, that's the wrong question. That's not wise. And can one more business trip give you some more money and your family not be devastated by it? Maybe. But do you have anybody in your life that can say to you, well, you said that you were not going to be gone, to where you're gone from your home more than 20 weeks a year, and that puts you at 25. That line moved. I had reasons for that. Friends, do not organize your life around the lowest common denominator and expect highest results. It just doesn't make sense, right? You can't live your life with what can I get by with and, expect a raise. You can't come into work late every day, not big late, maybe just a little late, or a little later, or leave a little early, and then expect a raise at evaluation time. You can't expect to get by with stealing a few staples, then a few pens, then a few staplers, then a few 3-hole punches. By the time you get to the copier, people notice, right? You're gonna get fired. Don't do that. But it starts with the paper clips. And you're being silly. Maybe. But I've seen people lose their jobs because of what they were watching on their screens at work. No big deal till it is. So here's a better question. In every place and every time, simply say, what is the wise thing to do? Say it with me. What is the wise thing to do? Right? What's the wise thing to do? And this is what Paul says to the early church. He says, so be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. Wisely, not foolishly. Because here's something that really bothers us, and that is that a decision can be not wrong and unwise at the same time. Right? You say, well, is that wrong? Well, no, not necessarily, but it may be unwise for you, and maybe for many people. Something that's quite terrifying to me because I see the effects of it in ways that most of you do not, and that's gambling. Right? It's just $10 on the slots. It's not a big deal. It's just $40 at the roulette table. It's not a big deal. I get free drinks when I'm on the cruise. Whatever, it pays off for itself. Whatever, I got a credit. It's not a big deal. And that looks fun, doesn't it? Like graphics. I mean, that looks like that gambling looks great there, right? Until it doesn't. Until you're behind, until you're chasing to get caught up. I don't know if you all remember the NBA, playoffs and finals. I'm trying to forget it. But did you notice, like, at every commercial break, it was all on sports betting, over and over and over again. You can bet on anything. You can bet on if Maduro's going to get, taken and when. And so here's the thing. You can say, sports betting is not a big deal. I can do that for fun, and maybe you can, but not everybody can. Nearly 10% of regular sports bettors actually have a problem. So here's the thing for you. If you're thinking about loving your neighbor, is it loving your neighbor if you're sitting right next to someone who very well could trash their life because they're following your example? Maybe it's not a problem for you, but it is for 1 out of 10 people, right? Friends, more than 4 million Americans are absolutely struggling with sports betting, and it's pretty new, really. I mean, legally, pretty new. An average gambling-related debt, nearly $28,000. But it's everywhere, right? You can do it from your phone all the time. And so Paul says to the early church, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have, sports betting that fast, but they did have sports betting. You bet you they did in the Colosseum and other places. You can bet on anything, right? Down to, is this pitch going to be a strike or a ball? And it's a problem for people. So Paul says, be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. Take advantage of every opportunity because these are, say it with me, evil times. And you're like, whoa. That's hyperbole. Or hyperbole, however you want to say it. Right, it's exaggerated. Is it? When's the last time you watched the television or scrolled and the advertisement was trying to help you with something for your good? I've never seen it in my whole life. I've seen people say, hey, you ought to do this so I can have your money. You ought to do that so I can have your vote. You ought to do this so you can get on my team. You see what I'm saying? Friends, life is not set up for you. The world is set against you to take your money, to take your time, to take your resources, to use you for their gain. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to fall for that because that's evil, things that take away from your life. And Paul, by the way, is writing specifically to a group of folks who were being torn apart by division, particularly Jewish versus non-Jewish. So what's evil in that setting was division and politics that were ripping and tearing families apart. And Paul says, no, not with you. We're about people who love and are unified and following Jesus and doing the next right thing, doing the wise thing. Still true today. So a loving community reacts not so much to what one is doing as to where we're headed, right? The direction that we're heading. And so Paul says, because the times are evil, because the world is not out to really support you and care for you and do all the good things for you, that's what we're for, by the way. That's what church is for, to be a corrective, to be a healing balm to the world. Paul says, because of this, don't be ignorant. Don't be ignorant, but understand the Lord's will. Understand what the Lord is like. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, generosity, self-control. These are the things of God. So our question then is not so much, is this right or wrong, as it is, who am I becoming? Right? And so you have to ask yourself the question, if I'm about to do this, what sort of person will I become if I continue to do that? If you look 10 years from now making the decisions you're making, what kind of person will you be? If you keep yelling at your children, keep yelling at your spouse, what will that end? Well, you'll be alone. So you probably don't want to do that over and over again. What will it be like if I overspend and get in a little more credit card debt? It's not terrible now, but if I continue this pattern of overspending just 10% a year, what will that look like at 19% interest with Visa, or 24 or 30%? Do the math. It's not good. So don't do that. Live wisely. And Paul says, by the way, it's not just about you. He says, let us therefore no longer pass judgment on one another. No. All right, but resolve instead, say with me, never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of another, right? He says, I know and am persuaded in the Lord Jesus that nothing is unclean in itself, but it is unclean for anyone who thinks it's unclean. If your brother or sister is being injured by what you eat, there was a big controversy about what you could eat, you're no longer walking in love. Do not let what you eat cause the ruin of someone for whom Christ died. For us, friends, what that means is don't order your glass of wine until you know the people sitting across from you whether they have an alcohol problem or not. Because if they do, you're out of line. If they don't, maybe fine, right? By the way, Jesus turned water into wine. My parents would say, I think he turned wine into water. But that's not true, right? Alcohol can be absolutely fine for one person and absolutely devastating for another, as is gambling, as in swimming in a pool, right? But here's the thing, friends. It doesn't just happen. Our greatest regrets are preceded by a series of unwise decisions, right? You think about it. It didn't just happen. Say it with me. It didn't just happen. It drives me crazy when people say, oh, like this relationship, it just happened. Friends, I have never known somebody like walking down the street and poof, their clothes are gone. That's not how it works. People don't just, show up in an affair. That's not how it works. There's a text, there's a look, there's a glance, there's a linger, there's a meetup, there's a Snapchat, there's a whatever it is. And then it just happened. No. It was a series of unwise decisions, one after another after another. And in light of my past experiences, this is a great way to ask this question. My current reality and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? Say that with me. In light of my past experiences, my current reality, and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? Not just what's wise to do, what's wise for me to do, right? Why? Because your past can be a really good indicator of future pain points, of temptations, of addictions, of blind spots, right? There's some people that you have had such a terrible relationship with credit cards that it's just not wise for you to have one. Because over time, the people you love or care about don't know about your spending habits, which you've been keeping secret. And for sometimes, even for some months, maybe even for a year, you've got it under control till you don't. And so you need to hand your credit card to someone that you love and trust and loves you. For other of you, that's alcohol. For other of you, that's weed. For other of you, that's whatever it is, right? And here's the thing that, good Christian folks don't even want to talk about. This is even true with what you watch on TV. There's some people in the room where you can watch a romance and it's absolutely fine. There are other people that when you watch that exact same show, they're going to be deep in their pornography addiction for 2 weeks. Same show, 2 different outcomes. What can be true for one person can be absolutely devastating for another. You've probably heard this. This isn't new to you, but it's worth a reminder. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So look at your past. Look at your patterns and say, that might be fine for you, but I can't do that and be okay tomorrow. It's just not wise for me. A different way of looking at it would say, what breaks your heart? What breaks your heart? For me as your pastor, it breaks my heart to watch people that I love make decisions that undermine their best life, a really good life that God has for them. And it breaks my heart to watch parents treat their children in a way that drive their children away as soon as they get their license, right? Their relationship is so broken that by the time they get their license or they go to college, they're not going to see them much. Chantel and I worked diligently to try to have the kind of relationship that when our children got to choose whether they saw us or not, they would choose to see us. We're really fortunate that sometimes they do. Sometimes they do want to see us. And it breaks my heart to watch young couples make financial decisions trying to keep up with their friends that will push their marriage to the very edge of disaster. Because it's so tight every month. And they yell at each other about it, but they don't know how to get out of it. And it breaks my heart to watch people that I really love, and they deeply invest in everything except that which is eternal. The one thing that'll last. But they're really busy doing all the stuff that's going to be gone when they die. Just know, friends, that you are breaking someone's heart when you hear yourself saying these phrases. But I'm not hurting anyone. Say it with me. But I'm not hurting anyone. When you say that, you're hurting someone. Because here's the thing. When you say that, you can't know that. This side of heaven, you can't know that. Or, one of my favorites, say it with me, I can handle it. Well, maybe. But here's the bigger question. For how long? Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe for a week, maybe for a month. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Say it with me. There's no law against it. Friends, it doesn't make it right or helpful or wise, does it? No. And the one that makes me cringe as your pastor so hard, God will forgive me. Say with me. God will forgive me. Yeah, but your spouse might not. And I guarantee you, as a guy about to hit 60 in a couple years, your body won't. Right? God will forgive you. Your body won't. Your body keeps the score. Right? So, Andy Stanley says, unwise is the gateway to regret. It just is. Now, this is why it matters. It matters for your good, for those you love, and because you represent Jesus. You represent Jesus to this world. And so Paul, in sort of his two-part series, Ephesians and Colossians, he says, act wisely toward outsiders, not just for people in here, but everybody, making the most of the opportunity. It's an opportunity we have, friends. Your speech should always be gracious and sprinkled with insight so that you may know how to respond to every person, right? Because, friends, you may be the only Bible someone ever reads. In our world today, you may be the only Christian someone knows that's actually trying to live for Jesus. So here's your action steps, friends. Don't settle for legal or tolerable or passable. Ask yourself, say it with me one more time, what is the wise thing for me to do? Looking at your past, knowing your current reality, and who you'd like to become. What would be the wise thing for you to do? And then another way of getting at this, if that's kind of too big, just ask yourself, what am I doing today that has the potential of robbing me or my marriage or my finances, my preferred future? What am I doing today that's actually working against my best interest? That's a really big question. If you can answer that today, you're way down the road on a better life. And then, if you just want the easy one, come back next week. And we're going to ask the final question, what does love require of me? It's really the Jesus question. And that'll change your life for good as well. Amen? Let's pray the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.